Hey, Michael with XForcePC. The upcoming video was shot in early February 2022, and X-Plane 12 is not done. So you're going to see some cool new stuff in here, and you're going to see some stuff that isn't finished, isn't put in, like coastlines and fog and things like that. So do bear that in mind. There's no need to point out any flaws you might see because this is a pre-release version of X-Plane 12. It's not done. So try to keep that in mind as you watch this, and hopefully enjoy it.
All right, so this is far from official, Mike, but we'll just take a quick little spin here in the 330. So here we are in our new airplane, the A330, which I'm allowed to talk about because Laminar Research has already shown a video of this airplane. And we're looking at some nice, we're up here in LaGuardia. I actually feel just a little bit cold looking at it. And this is obviously the snow and ice textures we can set in the weather. All right, so here's something cool, Mike. Get this. I made it so that if you set snow and ice on the runway and it's warm, the ice is going to melt like over time. And I even made it so like a certain amount of ice will melt over like a larger area. So if you start with like clumpy bits of ice, pretty soon the whole runway will be wet if it's above freezing. And then I also made it so if it's wet and the temperature goes below freezing, well, I don't have to tell you what happens next. Right. And so all this dynamic, and then this hooks into the real weather system. And so you can leave real weather running, like with recording a time-lapse movie over a period of a day or two as the front moves through, and you can watch the runways get all wet and then freeze and then thaw the next day. It all happens in real time. It is just, it's so cool. So this is a little bit of new runway rendering, which I think is just awesome. And our new A330, which is just so cool. The detail of this airplane. Oh, so get this. When we first, let me back out so you have a little bit less airplane noise in the background here. When we first decided to do the A330, I was so bored by it. I was like, oh, another Airbus, another airliner. They all fly the same. What's the point? I was so wrong. Because once you start flying this airplane in X-Plane, what you realize is it is freaking huge. It is gigantic. And you really feel the size of this thing when you fly it. I mean, first of all, Alex Unruh, our artist, I mean, the level of detail that he went to. I'm sure it's very loud out here. We got the sound turned down now. But I mean, look at that landing gear and the engines and just the detail that he went through. And oh my gosh, the turbines are spinning at the right speed, and the brakes and the nose gear, you know, retraction. And then you can see he's actually got the bump maps on the metal. You can tell this airplane's made out of aluminum and then painted from looking at it. And he's got different materials that reflect lights, different amounts. I mean, it's an incredible bit of detail and just so much work. And our video showed the airplane from the outside, but what our video didn't begin to show, that we've already published, is all of the buttons and knobs and switches and flight managing system and, you know, emergency alerting systems and engine instruments. I mean, I don't even know how to use all the systems in this thing yet. But I mean, you can go back. They've been doing all of the emergency pages that the thing like reverts into as you start losing hydraulic systems and stuff in the airplane. It's absolutely incredible. And so what I've been struck by once they did this airplane was the detail that they've gone to is insane. The quality of the workmanship is the best I've ever seen in X-Plane, and just the size of the airplane being simulated is massive. And you can feel how massive the airplane is as soon as you start trying to fly it. Like, for example, I'm going to go to full power here, and when I go to full power, it takes a while for the engines to spin up, right? The engines kind of, and so the engines are slowly spinning up, and the airplane changes speed so slowly. It's so slow to accelerate, and when you get in the air, it takes forever to slow down. And you take like 2 miles just to turn. And so it speeds up so slow, and it slows down so slowly. Look, here I am, I'm kind of skidding and sliding on the ice here. This thing is so big and massive, I'm in like gradually in like a 4-wheel drift while I'm having a conversation because it even skids down the runway slow. Look at that, and this gigantic monster of a beast has used up just about the whole runway. And so that was a skidding back and forth, S-turning down the runway, but the whole thing happened so slow I was able to talk and deal with the skid at the same time. I mean, the thing is just massive, and everything you do, you have to plan in advance when you operate this airplane. And then,
But Austin, tell me about those wheels.
they're just like the real ones, but the detail. Oh, right, the Eagle. That's right, the Eagle Claw. So let me go ahead and, so this airplane has Eagle Claw landing gear. Oh my gosh, look at it. Look, Eagle Claw is not there. And then look, the Eagle Claw increases as the landing gear extends. And that's because in the real airplane, they allow that strut to extend as the gear comes out. But then they have to undo the Eagle Claw as the gear retracts to fit it in the belly of the airplane. You see? Yes, and here's a cool thing. Back in X-Plane 11, this was just for looks. I would have Eagle Claw where that aft tire is just down for looks. But the real A330 has this feature where as that main gear touches down in the back there, it is actually compressing the main shock absorber, okay? And let me get back. I'm going to get the camera back so you can stand a chance of hearing me. Maybe this will make it a little bit quieter from the airplane so you can hear me. But as that aft tire comes down, the strut compresses, but it doesn't compress as much for each foot of tire deflection. So if the tire comes up 2 feet, the strut only compresses 1 foot. In other words, it's softer. And so the first bit of the landing is softer as as the rear gear hits. Then the front slams down, and now all of a sudden it gets stiffer for the next bit of the travel. And so when you land a real A330, it gives you a softer landing than other airplanes because it only has half that stiffness of the spring for the first bit of the travel while that rear tire comes up. And so A330s will give you a smoother landing than other airplanes for this reason. And you fly in a real A330, as I recently got a chance to do just as a regular airline trip, sure enough, the landing was just so smooth I could barely even tell we were down. Instead of a thump, it was more like a and then you had all the vibration on the runway, but it was like slowly induced. All of the physics are here in X-Plane. It was like 2 or 3 days of me just banging my head into trigonometry because it's this weird kind of discontinuous function where as the gear comes down, first the rear gear comes down, then you have less shock absorption, then the front one comes down. Now every inch of compression is shock absorber, main shock compression. And so trying to get all of the math and the trigonometry was really tricky, especially because I had it to also work if the front gear was lower and the rear gear was up, which some airplanes do have. So, that Eagle Claw gear is not just for looks. And I guess a little test you can run in X-Plane is to try and run down the runway just on the rear wheels. And if you can do that, because they're so soft, they have some resistance, but they're so soft to help that smooth landing that if you can run down the runway just on the rear wheels, like running a motorcycle down, the street with the nose up, it means you're flying it just right. And then of course, all the flaps and speed brakes, you see, all the detail. He's got the materials, correct as for what reflects light and what doesn't, in the speed brakes. And while of course, all of this modeling is absolutely insane. Whoops, that's the weather map. We're not going to try and do that right now. Sorry, I'm used to my Macintosh, of course, and we're doing Windows, so all the keys are a tiny bit different. Of course, all the X-Plane flight dynamics are still there, right? I don't think anybody watching this is going to think, Austin's going to mess up the physics just to do eye candy. I think we all know that's not going to happen, right? We're keeping the X-Plane physics, and I've actually made it quite a bit better for X-Plane 12. I've made all the flight model a bit better for X-Plane 12. Really overhauled a lot of systems. But at the same time, Alex Unruh, who's just taken this airplane and just knocked it out of the park. Oh, and the clouds are all 3D now, you may notice, and that's thanks to Ben Suppy. So Ben has done this incredible job with 3D clouds. Alex done the airplane. I've upped my game with the flight model. And then I've got some Eastern Europeans, which are new to the team, doing all of the textures and stuff for the scenery. And I got someone from Argentina doing all the sound. And we send her sounds to the real airplane, and then she like integrates them in incredible ways. And so here we are in all the cockpit with all this just incredible detail, all the systems, the ECAM, the emergency procedures. I don't even know how to work all this stuff. It'd probably take me a day to figure it all out. But you can go and do all your, like, you know, when hydraulic systems start failing and you go into reversionary mode in flight controls, you can invoke like hydraulic systems failures pages up here, and try to get this thing down on the ground with systems failed. It's all just absolutely just like the real airplane. And here I go opening my weather map again. You remember my weather? It's just because your keys are different than my keys. You remember my weather video, the acid trip weather video? Yeah. So that's the actual weather map, and I'll do a full video on that later when the time is right. But yeah, so this is just a quick little look at the A330. I'm gonna go full right, boom. I'm now full right on the joystick, all the way over. And of course the Airbus, that's it. This is the Airbus flight control system. The Airbus flight control system only lets you go, it's like 50 or 60 degrees of bank, something like that. Someone will say in the comments. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, maybe I'll let you do some of that.
Exactly. And someone will publish in the comments exactly what the bank angle is. I don't recall. It's all in the source code. I can go look at it. But you only are allowed to go over to a certain bank, something in a 45-degree ballpark. And then if I release the stick, then it goes to a different minimum bank angle. You see, it doesn't level the wings when you reduce the stick, but it takes you out of that maximum like 60-degree or 50-degree, whatever it is, override, and kind of, you know, and then once it gets you within 30 degrees, it just kind of quits bugging you, you see, and then it lets aerodynamics take
It's
over.
slowly leveling out.
Yeah, and that's just due to the natural aerodynamic dihedral effect of the wings. You see, now it's not the flight control system leveling this out, now it's physics leveling this out. And then, we might have gone into an underspeed or an overspeed. When it gets into an underspeed or overspeed, then it levels the wings completely. That's also, so I haven't touched the joystick while all of this has been happening.
You've got the throttles all the way up, so you're probably over.
Oh, there we go. I'm at 360 knots.
Yeah.
You see, so it thought I was in a dead man spiral, and hopefully the camera can catch this. It thought I was in a dead man spiral as I hit that overspeed, so it leveled the wings, so any pulling back on the stick I did took me up to slow me down, not pull me steeper into the spiral. So we're seeing the Airbus flight control system here. Now, when we see this, and if you were to ask an Airbus engineer about this, you'd say, yeah, this is great. You can only go to a very limited bank. It levels the nose when you get to, you know, high speed. And if I'd gone too slow, it would have done the same thing. It would have leveled the wings. So all this flight control system stuff from the real Airbus is in here. But here's where it makes this airplane such a pain in the ass to fly. It will not do anything quickly. You cannot say, whoop, pull a nice tight turn and drop it onto the runway. That is like so out of bounds for several reasons.
Well,
The
what if you
airplane's
get a
too big.
TCAS warning? What do you do?
You trend slowly away from the threat. And so everything has to be done so slowly and gently because the airplane weighs like 500,000 or 600,000 pounds. Everything it does, it accelerates and decelerates slowly, and the flight control system won't let you do anything, you know, stupid or quick. So all of your decisions have to be made in advance. You cannot hot dog in this airplane. And as you're flying it, you feel this 500,000 pounds, and you get all the way off the throttle, for example, and I mean, you know, it barely wants to slow down. And since it doesn't really want to slow down very quickly, it doesn't want to speed up quickly, and it's so damn heavy, it just keeps going like a train going down the tracks. Well, what does that mean? It means it's efficient. This airplane is built for efficiency. There's no drag, right? It's got all these passengers, all this cargo, all this fuel to go between the continents, but no drag. And so, sure, everything changes slowly, but there's a reason everything changes slowly. It's because you don't need to change things quickly to go between continents at 75% of the speed of sound. You need a nice heavy weight with no drag, just coasting all the way there. This is not designed for maneuverability. It's designed for efficiency and safety. But you have to plan, look, I'm trying to bank and it keeps stopping me from banking. Why? Because I lowered the nose. And as soon as I lowered the nose, what happened? I'm at power off. I'm at power idle. But we are still over our maximum speed. We're at 360 knots. We're over our maximum speed at idle thrust because I lowered the nose a bit. All weight, no drag. And so in a way, I find the airplane very difficult to fly, but I don't like to plan ahead that much, right? I'm used to my little Lancer that just immediately responds to my whims. This is the opposite of that. Everything has to be planned in advance, and you better not get outside any of your limits. Because if you do, it's going to push you right back into the middle of the envelope. Your airplane's going to stay in one piece, but God help you if you're behind with your navigation. Got to help you if you're not aligned with the runway, because you're not going to get it aligned with the runway quickly. And so once I started flying this airplane, I really started appreciating the value of the art. And you see, now I've gotten this thing slow enough, it's letting me bank. I started appreciating the value of the art that Alex Sunru did, and the impact, whether you like it or not, positive or negative, the impact of the Airbus flight control system. And of course, it's a fun use of X-plane flight dynamics, where you just take incredible mass to, an extreme. And then as I hit the rudder, which you can do in an Airbus, you get more lift on one side than the other due to dihedral effect and all that. All that's there. And then we got streamlines and weight turbulence. This is like a little throwback from the old days of X-plane. Oh, and then thermals and microbursts. And that's a whole other thing. I'll do a weather video later. But yeah, so there's a quick look at the Airbus, and you'll see I've kind of been eyeing LaGuardia here or Kennedy, whatever that is. Someone will tell us in the comments. Yep, okay, there it is. So I've been eyeing that airport and the one that's a little farther away for this talk, trying to work my way down there. And if I was in my little Lancer that I fly, in reality, I'd pop down onto that runway no problem. But here, there's no possible way I'm landing on that runway. Yeah, right. You see, there's no way I am landing on the runway. I'm looking right at it. Look, the wings are leveling without my desire because I'm lowering the nose to hit the runway. That causes me to go over speed. I go over speed, the flight control system levels the wings. Right? So I'm not really in control of the pitch or the roll of the airplane because I'm setting myself up on like this crazy approach that goes outside of the flight control system. You have to plan in advance. But that's how they operate the real airplane. They plan in advance.
I wonder if some people think the plane is broken because it's not doing what I'm telling it to do.
Yeah, they may. There may be a lot of people that say it's broken. I mean, how many comments have you read where people complain that the single-engine propeller airplane pulls to the left on takeoff? Right? Must be the X-plane's broken. The airplane pulls left. So yeah, there will be people that say it's broken, but I always make the same decision in X-plane, right? How many times have you heard me say, well, I'm not going to do it right. I just want to do what everybody expects me to do, right? When's the last time you've heard me say that? So we're doing the job right. And some people, and it's always the same thing. Whenever we do the job right like this, some people know that it's right, and they say it's great, it's right. Some people don't know it, and they say, oh, I learned something. And then there's always group 3, right? They don't know it, they see that they're presented the correct information, and so they say the new information must be wrong, right? If something comes along that's offering to teach them, they reject it instead. And say, X-plane's wrong, right? They reject the good information so they can stay ensconced in their obsolete or incorrect viewpoint, which is obviously like one of the problems of the day.
You can use that logic for a lot of things these days.
Exactly. You can use that logic for a lot. And then there's a fourth group of people. There's a fourth group. These are people that know more about the system than me. And they're like, yeah, sure, you did it fine, but you forgot the reversionary mode when you've lost the secondary pitot static system, and it goes into direct law mode, and then you lose your flight control limits, which we actually do simulate. But you're going to have to work pretty hard to come up with an Airbus flight control system that I don't know at this point in the game. But it can still be done. There's always that fourth group of people. And so here I am taking a super, super, super long time to gradually, use up like half the greater New York area.
Is that what your goal
Yeah,
is?
why don't we try it?
Okay.
But as you can see, it takes so dang long. And we're still working on the cloud rendering. Cloud rendering is obviously not done. You can see right through the clouds there. So we're still working on the cloud rendering. Oh, and also we're working on our coastlines. I think these coastlines here look horrible. They look way too polygonal. So cloud rendering and coastlines are not seen in this video, but I have already seen better fog modeling and coastline modeling. And we're working on a coastline model, and I've seen development images of it. You guys have it, the rest of the world has them, but we will soon enough. But I've seen models where we now have actual water and actual land, and the two overlap as the land dives down under the water. And so you actually see the land phase out as the water comes in. So,
Did you lose the airport?
no, I still see it.
Okay.
But the wings keep auto-leveling, and the wings keep auto-leveling because I keep going to bad speeds. Okay, let's see how we're doing here. All right, I think I'm going to use my...
Not adding any more throttle.
Oh my god, I'm at 330 knots. You see, just lowering the nose, even though my power is at idle, lowering the nose had me up to 330 knots. So I lowered the gear at 330 knots just now. Yeah, that would have ripped the gear doors off in reality. So, basically, I'm not planning ahead enough as I fly this airplane. And because I'm not planning ahead enough, I'm in this just absurdly embarrassing situation where I'm coming at the runway at 300 knots because I didn't plan my descent. And so whenever you fly a real A330, you're coming down from 35,000 feet and 75% of the speed of sound down to a 120 knot approach. And that whole deceleration and slowing down is this long, gradual, carefully planned, well orchestrated thing. I didn't do that because I'm sitting here talking to you, flying in a tight circle around the airport, and as a result, I'm 100 knots too fast right now on approach.
Better hurry up
and it's an icy runway.
Yeah, change the runway to not icy real quick.
Yeah. Well, let's see what happens here. Let's just. Okay. Boom. Okay. Okay.
Oh, that was bad.
Yeah. Well, we're at 100 extra knots. All right. So obviously.
It's a go around.
Yeah, well, no, let's watch the Eagle Claw gear. Why not? And then I'm just going to pause the simulation right before we run off the end of the runway. All right, so let's watch the Eagle Claw gear. Alex went to the trouble to code it, or to do the art. Oh, look at that! Look at that! Look at that! Woo! Yeah! I'm going to put on the brakes, engage, and that was the no flap landing, by the way. I'm going to go to full power on the reverse. Come on, baby! Full brakes. Wasn't that awesome? You could see that Eagle Claw gear, doing each wheel. Oh yeah, look at that. I think we might be able to do it. We're not getting a lot of braking. Okay, so it looks like I may have managed to pull it off. And you notice how it seems to not be slowing down? It is slowing down. It's just so dang big that it can do 100 knots and still look slow. No. Okay, so this is what happens when you don't plan. Oh, look at the thrust reversals there. Look at that. Look at that. Get off the power, and then you can see it kind of hanging out on the tires there. So that's what happens when you don't plan ahead with an airplane that needs you to plan ahead. So that's a quick little look at the A330 and some wet runways, the coastlines and the clouds. That stuff we're still working on because this coastline looks like crap here, right? It's just straight line from soda water. But we're going to have the actual terrain coming like this, and then the water overlapping and the terrain disappearing under the water. I've already seen the screenshots with test textures. So way better, starting to look good. And then we got waves and stuff on the water. I'm not going to show you that today. You can kind of see them, but I'll show you some awesome seaplane action maybe in the next one. And then my goal, of course, is to have the waves, interacting with the land on the coast. So anyway, that's a quick look at a few things you have to do right in X-Plane 12. That's better than X-Plane 11 by quite a bit.